In the quaint village of Rivenwood, nestled deep within the dense ancient forests of the northern countryside, life was peaceful and predictable. The villagers, though wary of the dark woods that surrounded them, lived in relative harmony. The village was a picturesque place, with cobblestone streets lined with charming houses and brightly colored flower gardens. The only real excitement came during the harvest festivals and periodic town fairs, where the residents gathered to celebrate their close-knit community. On one fateful night, however, this tranquility was shattered. On a moonless evening, as the villagers dispersed to their homes, an eerie howl pierced the silence of the night. It was a sound unlike anything they had ever heard before, a chilling howl that seemed to come from deep within the forest. A shiver ran down the spine of those who heard it, and the village fell into an unsettling silence. The next morning, the village awoke to horror. The body of Jacob, the local blacksmith, was found in his workshop, brutally mangled. Blood flooded the walls and floor, and deep claw marks were left on the wooden workbenches and tools. Jacob's body lay in a gruesome state, limbs twisted at unnatural angles, his chest ripped open. It was clear that the animal that had attacked him was no ordinary animal. Panic and fear gripped the town as rumors of the wild animal attack spread quickly. Residents gathered in the town square, their faces pale and anxious. The village elders, a group of wise and respected men, called an emergency meeting to discuss the terrible event. Theories ranged from rogue wolves to a bear attack, but the wounds on Jacob's body were too serious and unnatural for an ordinary predator. The village healer, an old woman named Agatha, looked at the wounds and shook her head. She had seen many wounds in her time, but nothing like this. Some superstitious residents had begun to whisper about old legends of the werewolf, a cursed creature that roamed the forests on dark nights. These legends had been passed down from generation to generation, telling of people turning into wild beasts by the light of the full moon. The elders rejected these stories as folklore, insisting that there must be a rational explanation. They decided to organize a hunt to track down the animal responsible for Jacob's death. They gathered volunteers, sharpened their weapons, and a sense of grim determination settled over the village. But despite their best efforts, the hunt was fruitless. No trace of the beast could be found. As night fell, an atmosphere of tension and fear once again hung over Rivenwood. Families locked doors and windows, huddled together for safety. The howls from the forest continued unabated, echoing in the darkness and keeping the villagers in suspense. Each night seemed longer and darker than the last, and the once peaceful village became a place of terror and uncertainty. The villagers knew that something terrible lurked in the shadows, something that took the life of one of their own. The old legends no longer seemed like mere tales, they became all too real. Days turned into weeks, and the fear that gripped Rivenwood did not abate. The villagers could only hope that the nightmare would soon be over, that they would wake up from their terrible dream and see their village restored to its former peace. The villagers' fear continued to grow as more nights passed without a sighting of the creature responsible for Jacob's death. The once lively and bustling village of Rivenwood became eerily quiet, with people rarely venturing out after sunset. The howls persisted, an ominous reminder of the lurking danger. Agatha, the village healer, began to delve into ancient texts and folklore, searching for clues that might help them understand and combat the beast. In her small, cluttered cottage, Filled with shelves of old books and jars of herbs, Agatha found a dusty, leather-bound tome that had been passed down through generations of healers. The book contained tales of the supernatural, remedies for various ailments, and, to her surprise, detailed accounts of werewolf sightings. As she read through the pages, Agatha discovered a pattern. Every few decades, during a particularly harsh winter, there were reports of similar attacks. Each time the creature seemed to vanish as mysteriously as it had appeared. Agatha shared her findings with the village elders, who were initially skeptical, but gradually began to accept the possibility that they were dealing with something beyond their understanding. The elders decided to keep the information secret to avoid further panic, but they couldn't ignore the growing unease among the villagers. As the days went by, the villagers began to notice strange behavior in one of their own. Thomas, a quiet and reclusive farmer who lived on the outskirts of the village, started exhibiting odd symptoms. He complained of severe headaches, and his normally pale skin took on a grayish hue. He avoided contact with others, often retreating into the woods for hours at a time. Those who encountered him reported seeing a wild, almost feral look in his eyes. Rumors began to circulate, and some villagers started to suspect that Thomas might be connected to the attacks. Despite his protests of innocence, a sense of paranoia spread, and Thomas found himself increasingly isolated. His once tidy farm fell into disrepair, and he was often seen wandering the village at odd hours, muttering to himself. Agatha, sensing that there might be more to Thomas's condition, decided to visit him. She found him in a distressed state, his cottage in disarray, and his appearance haggard. Thomas confided in her that he had been experiencing vivid nightmares of hunting and killing, waking up with blood on his hands and clothes, but with no memory of where he had been or what he had done. Agatha examined him closely and discovered strange claw-like marks on his arms and back. She realized that Thomas might be under some kind of curse or influence, and that he could be the key to understanding the werewolf attacks. She urged him to stay inside during the nights and offered him herbal remedies to help ease his suffering. Meanwhile, the village elders continued to search for answers. They spoke to the oldest residents, who recalled stories of a powerful sorcerer who had once lived in the forest. According to the legend, the sorcerer had been wronged by the villagers and had cursed the land, vowing that every few decades a werewolf would rise to exact vengeance. The sorcerer's curse, they believed, had created the cycle of terror that now haunted them. With this newfound knowledge, Agatha and the elders devised a plan to break the curse. They would need to perform an ancient ritual, one that required the cooperation and unity of the entire village. But first, they had to confirm that Thomas was indeed the werewolf and find a way to keep him under control during the ritual. The nights grew colder and longer, and the villagers' anxiety reached a fever pitch. The howls seemed closer now, more menacing. As the full moon approached, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of Rivenwood. The villagers prepared themselves for the battle to come, hoping that their unity and courage would be enough to end the nightmare once and for all. As the full moon approached, the tension in Rivenwood became palpable. The villagers worked tirelessly, preparing for the ritual that they hoped would break the curse and end the reign of terror. Agatha, along with the village elders, carefully studied the ancient texts, ensuring they understood every step of the ritual. They gathered the necessary ingredients: rare herbs, enchanted candles, and a ceremonial dagger that had been blessed by a long-forgotten priest. Meanwhile, Thomas's condition continued to deteriorate. His nightmares grew more intense, and he struggled to stay awake, fearing the darkness and the transformations it might bring. Agatha visited him daily, providing potions to ease his pain and strengthen his resolve. She was determined to help him break free from the curse, knowing that his fate was intertwined with the village's survival. On the night of the full moon, the villagers gathered in the clearing at the edge of the forest. A large bonfire crackled in the center, casting flickering shadows on the surrounding trees. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. Agatha stood at the front, holding the ceremonial dagger, her face set with grim determination. Thomas was brought forward, his hands bound with ropes of enchanted hemp to prevent him from escaping if the transformation began. The ritual began with a solemn chant, the villagers' voices rising in unison as they recited the ancient incantation. The air seemed to hum with energy, and the flames of the bonfire danced higher as if responding to their words. Agatha stepped forward, sprinkling the rare herbs into the fire, which burst into a cascade of colors, green, blue, and violet. The villagers gasped in awe, but their focus remained unwavering. As the chant reached its climax, Thomas began to convulse. His eyes turned a deep, unnatural shade, and his body strained against the enchanted ropes. Agatha hurriedly cut her palm with the ceremonial dagger, letting her blood drip onto a sacred stone at the base of the bonfire. The flames roared, and a blinding light enveloped the clearing. In that moment, the villagers saw a spectral figure materialize from the flames, the long-dead sorcerer who had cursed their village. His eyes glowed with malevolent intent as he raised his hands, summoning dark energy to reinforce the curse. The villagers recoiled in fear, but Agatha stood firm, meeting the sorcerer's gaze with unwavering defiance. Agatha called upon the village's unity and strength, urging everyone to focus their willpower on breaking the curse. The villagers joined hands, forming a circle around Thomas and the bonfire, their collective energy merging into a single force. Agatha raised the dagger, pointing it towards the sorcerer, and with a final, powerful incantation, she directed the energy towards him. The sorcerer howled in rage as the energy engulfed him, tearing at his spectral form. The bond of the curse began to weaken, the dark magic unraveling under the villagers' combined will. Thomas's convulsions grew more violent, but he remained conscious, fighting the transformation with every ounce of his strength. Finally, with a resounding crack, the curse shattered. The sorcerer's form disintegrated, his screams echoing through the night as he was banished from their world. The villagers collapsed to the ground, exhausted but victorious. Thomas, no longer bound by the curse, lay motionless, his breathing shallow but steady. The sun rose over Rivenwood, casting its warm light on a village transformed by the previous night's events. The curse was broken, but the toll it had taken was evident in the weary faces of the villagers. They gathered in the village square, their eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The battle was won, but the scars remained. Thomas, now free from the curse, slowly began to recover. Agatha continued to care for him, using her knowledge of herbs and healing to restore his strength. The villagers, once fearful and divided, came together to support one another, repairing the damage done to their homes and hearts. In the days that followed, the the village elders worked to ensure that the sorcerer's curse could never return. They erected protective wards around the village and performed cleansing rituals to purify the land. The villagers planted new crops and rebuilt their homes, determined to create a future free from the shadow of the past. Thomas, though grateful for his freedom, struggled with the memories of his actions while under the curse's influence. He spent long hours walking the forest, seeking solace and redemption in the beauty of nature. Agatha remained his steadfast friend, offering wisdom and comfort as he navigated the path to healing. The village of Rivenwood slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the events of that fateful night were never forgotten. The story of the cursed werewolf and the brave villagers who broke the sorcerer's hold became a legend, passed down through generations as a reminder of the power of unity and the resilience of the human spirit. And so life in Rivenwood continued, forever changed by the curse of the werewolf, yet strengthened by the bonds forged in the face of darkness. The villagers knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the trials they had overcome and the hope for a brighter future.